Check, 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 check. Okay. Ready to go. Now, I'm going to expect smiles out of this group.
You got 2 black marks so far. You're 10 minutes late.
Oh, no, they decided we needed
Good
to start
morning.
at 10:15 because of the people coming in. It was beyond my decision.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to San Clemente Village's first public event in many, many months. It's very nice to be back out in the community, and we're very proud to be presenting today on an important topic, which is ageism and how we can help one another and ourselves combat the negative effects of ageism. So thank you very much for your interest and for coming out this morning. It does help that it's air conditioned in here, I think. My name is Beth Hasenbein, and I am on the board of directors for San Clemente Village and have been working with the village since about this time last year. And I'm very proud to say that in that very short time, I've watched the village grow tremendously. We are a success, and I think that's the most important thing for all of us to walk away from here. This community has really responded. We have over 60 volunteers that have gone through our orientation and vetting programs and are actively at work in our community helping our neighbors. And we have over 80 members in the organization. So we've grown tremendously in a very brief period of time. Thank you very much. So today we have representatives from the different teams that work on or work with the village. And so in the back of the room, please be sure to drop by. We have membership and volunteers represented. We have fundraising and donations. Don't let that scare you. They have these wonderful gift cards with artists from art from one of our board members, local art, and they make great gift cards. And we also have our social events and activities group represented in the back. Hope I didn't miss anyone back there. And then most importantly, we have coffee. Coffee is ready, I've been told. We've got coffee and water and cookies, so please help yourself. And housekeeping, the restrooms are right around the reception table up in the front. So without further ado, I am very pleased to introduce to you the new chairperson for the board of directors at San Clemente Village. Her name is Jan Montague. Jan is an incredible individual. She has been involved in the village for over the last year, very, very active with the volunteer team and a key part of the success in bringing on those 60 plus volunteers that we talked about. She is a guiding spirit for all of us, keeping us on track and focused throughout that time. Her background is amazing. Jan is a gerontologist, and she has worked in the field in her own company as a consultant for other companies that support independent senior living and providing those seniors with educational and recreational support. So she's a perfect fit for us, and we are so pleased to have her with us. Her other accolades, she has been the president of Montague, Eipert and Associates. This is the consulting firm that I spoke of, and she is also the president of Whole Person Wellness International. So without further ado, I'm very proud to present Jan Montague.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you, Jan.
Thank you. Darren, good. And maybe we'll bring the lights down just a little bit. How about this title? Aging isn't for sissies. Did that get your attention or what? I kind of had a little pushback from a few people using that word sissies, when here with ageism, so much of it is about the language that we use to describe our self-beliefs and our behaviors. But the older we get, the more we realize that we have to be strong in how we persevere and being proactive in making sure that as we age, we're living the best life we possibly can. But this topic about ageism is huge. How many people are actually aware of ageism? You've heard the term before. Okay. You know, it's actually been around since 1968, the term ageism. But it's just, the issues surrounding it are just booming right now. So we're going to have some fun. We're going to talk about a difficult topic, but I will do everything I can to keep you on the edge of your seat and enjoying yourselves as we laugh and learn and maybe get a little heartache with a couple of the stories about the ill effects of ageism. So Darren, could we pull the lights down just maybe a little bit more? Now, you can't fall asleep though. You will embarrass yourself if you fall forward and hit the chair in front of you. Okay, promises, right? No one's going to fall asleep. Does this help though with the windows? It's kind of hard to see. So I'm going to start with a new term that's just come out. I've been doing this for ageism for quite some time, but I got off the speaker circuit. And so I looked at my ageism presentation and I realized I needed to do a big lit review, research review. And I came across, I just find this fascinating, a new term. Julie, I don't know if you've heard of this. It's called gerontophobia. Gerontophobia. It's the fear of aging. Yes, gerontophobia. And you know, Darren, this is just a little too dark. I need to see these beautiful faces. Make sure no one's falling asleep here. So gerontophobia, fear of aging, and aging anxiety are perpetuated through ageist stereotypes. And that leads us to fear our own aging. And this is going to have huge implications because this is why we've got to be talking to younger cohorts to help them not take on these ageist beliefs. Because if they continue to have a fear of aging, what will happen to them when they're about my age? Will they try to find tall buildings and tall bridges and jump off because of this fear of aging? So we need to be having this conversation with people of all ages. But I want to start with a little story because we're all just best friends. I want to start with a story about myself when I started graduate school at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. They have one of the best gerontology programs in the world. In fact, when I started there, Millie Seltzer, the head of the gerontology program, she was actually called the mother of gerontology. So they only accepted what they believed to be the best and the brightest who would be able to go forward and be able to teach and research and talk about issues surrounding our aging. So I started the program late. I had owned a large wellness-based fitness business for many years, but I knew I needed a career change. So I was looking at graduate schools, and I thought, you know what? I'm an entrepreneur, and the one thing I can count on for a business model is that if we get older, I'll have somebody to I'll have customers. Exactly. So it's the one field you can count on. If we've got people and we're getting older, I'll have a job. So I thought, well, gerontology, that's it. So it was about the second or third day of class, and in gerontology, we study the life course. So we study, because we're aging from birth, So we studied the life course, and the professor was asking some questions, and it came out that I was 35 years old. And that was about 10 years older than the other students in the class. And after the class, we were standing out in the hallway, and one of the students looked at me and said, "You know, Jan, you look pretty good for your age." And, you know, in thinking about that, it's now 30 years later. I can't say anyone has said that to me recently. But back then, at 35, I had this realization that I was no longer in the in-group. When I went there, I hadn't thought about it. I still thought of myself as, you know, I was physically fit. I did think I looked pretty good for 35. Did pretty much whatever I wanted to do. I thought I was in the in-group. At that split second, at that moment of them, a gerontology student saying, "You know, you look pretty good for your age," I realized, wow, I'm in the out group. They're going to include me, but I'm not really in their group anymore. It was monumental for me at that time because I was able to take the focus that I had, which was all about how do we age successfully, how do we age well, which was the main focus of my studies, but tie to it the concept of ageism and how ageism can be like barbs. It can attack our self-esteem. It can attack our self-worth. It can diminish my resilience when bad things do happen, and I have to have the ability to bounce back. So I was able to begin looking at how ageism, I studied that for quite a while, and how it impacts our well-being. This morning, I'm inviting you to open your minds and realize that it is impacting people of all ages. And so we're going to start, since I'd like to have some audience participation. I want to ask all of you in the audience, a simple question. How many of you woke up today? Some of you, it might have happened after coffee. I understand that. But it looks like, show of hands there, that most of us woke up. And if I do my math right, if we woke up yesterday, if we add today, yesterday plus 1, that means 1 plus 1, I'm aging. Everyone in the room is aging. We're aging from birth. It's the one commonality that we all get to share. And yes, Amy? Yeah, oh yeah, yes, yeah. If we're lucky. So since we're all aging and every one of us needs to be aware of ageism, we must stand up and be brave in combating the negative effects and its influence on our personal well-being. So today we're going to talk about the pervasiveness of ageism, why we just can't sit back and let it persist. So we must not, here's my word, we must not be sissies in this regard. So looking at this graph, this is, I find this interesting. This is the only one of the graphs I'll be showing. But look at 2010, where we were, and look at where we're going to be in 2030 of the number of older adults in our population. We are, as a population, aging, and we can attribute that to modern medicine, to knowledge of what it takes to live well into very advanced ages, and improve safety factors. So, but how do we make this be a good thing? If all these people are going to be getting older, how do we make this be a good thing? And here's some fun facts to look at that you might not realize. Today, 1 in 3 Americans is now 50 years of age or older. I love this next one. The United States contains more people age 65 and older than all of Canada. Eh? Is that amazing? By 2020, I love this one, by 2020, for the first time in history, people age 65 and over will outnumber children under 5 years of age. I'm hoping that's going to help me on the San Clemente Beach Trail when I'm walking. I've been run over by a couple of strollers. They're getting larger and larger, aren't they? And then the number that we saw in that last graph where it's just zooming up, by 2030, 1 in 5 of the United States residents will be over the age of 65. So we have to figure out, how do we get back to respecting our elders? How do we get back to aging being a good thing? You know, a lot of people, you woke up today, and you were probably expecting when you went to bed last night that you would wake up today. But a lot of people didn't. So how do we take that gift and how do we make it be a good thing? So as we define ageism, Dr. Robert Butler back in 1968 wrote a huge research manual, if you will, called Aging in America. And he finally defined ageism as a process of systematic stereotyping and discrimination against people just because of their age, just as racism and sexism accomplish this for skin color and gender. Now here's the difficulty with ageism. We can't put it in a box. We can't say, oh, that is truly ageist and that isn't. When we look at sexism and even racism, we can put more parameters around it. It's quite a bit clearer to us. But with ageism, it's still a little gray. It's still a little fuzzy because it's all in how someone might perceive the message or the language. We'll talk about that just a little bit. I have people all over the world that send me sign pictures. Like I have this one from Australia, and it's these two people all bent over with canes, and it's at a crosswalk, and it says elderly crossing. One of my friends sent me this one. I'm just kind of appalled at this. Are you all trying to figure out where you are on the chart? Isn't that all? This is like continuing care retirement communities. So retirement communities where they'll say, well, when you come in at independent living and when you need assisted living and when you need nursing care, not if. And then there usually isn't even a mechanism for you to have something awful happen, but then get better and go back to independent living. This kind of tells that same story, doesn't it? That we're all on some kind of slippery slope. But the question of when does ageism begin? Well, it begins at every age. We have some kind of concept of ageism, and what people are failing to see is this new concept out called reverse ageism. So the Age Discrimination Act was written in 1967, and it was passed to protect workers 40 years of age and older so that they just could not be indiscriminately fired because of their age. However, today, we are experiencing ageism at both ends of the spectrum. And this is called reverse ageism. It's largely seen in the employment sector, and it's when we're discriminating against those who are younger looking for new jobs. So reverse age discrimination means ignoring the advantages of employing younger workers solely with the purpose of protecting older employees. There's even a policy most companies have regarding this, and it's called last in, first out. Has anyone heard of that policy? Yeah. Now, what's so interesting is that what they're trying to do is to protect themselves against age discrimination. But actually what they're doing is they're practicing age discrimination, but at the complete opposite side of the equation. And what we need to be striving for would be equality for all employees in the workplace. And we're seeing another whole new occurrence with people in their 70s and 80s who are returning to the workforce because they need to supplement their income for a variety of reasons. So my question is, have you ever practiced ageism, reverse ageism, without realizing it? I wonder. This is my little story. That's actually me. When I owned my large fitness business in Cincinnati, I opened it in my mid-20s, and it just took off. It was very successful, and we ended up having four large centers, 30 some odd places out in the community, 10 corporate sites, including Kroger's. I was in Cincinnati, so that's the home of Procter & Gamble and Kroger's. We had both of those contracts. And a big hospital system had invited me to come and speak with them about starting an employee wellness program. But I heard through the grapevine that they thought I was too young to handle the responsibility. Oh my goodness, is right? Wrong person to say that to. So I was thoughtful about my preparation of the business plan I'd be presenting. I practiced my adult tone of voice on how I would be, my demeanor of how I would be presenting the information. Carefully chose my outfit. But when I was standing in front of the mirror, getting ready, it was, oh, Jan, they just think you're too young. And then I remembered that I had, this is because we all know each other so well. I will tell you the story. So I remembered that I had this one gray hair. I had this gray hair, and it came out right about here. And I had gotten it kind of early in life. I didn't have any other gray hair. I just had this one gray hair. And it was kind of that thick gray hair that at certain times now my hair would be cut. It would like stick straight up in the air. And so I would try to cover it up, because I was told if I pulled it, I would get 10 more gray hairs. But I took the tweezers, found that gray hair, I pulled it out, and I placed it on my bangs, hairspray, so it would stay in place. Right then, I had been a victim of reverse discrimination without realizing it. They thought I was too young, but in fact, we were just where we needed to be. But here's another way that I see reverse discrimination. Has this ever happened to you? You're in your doctor's office. Your new doctor comes in. He looks like Doogie Howser. Has that ever happened to anybody? And you laughingly say, are you even old enough to practice medicine? You wanted Marcus Welby, MD, to come in. Now, in saying that to Doogie, was that ageist? And why would that be ageist? It's reverse discrimination, but it's somewhat disrespectful, and it isn't true. So one of the tests of ageism is to ask yourself, is it true? Well, you knew that wouldn't be true. You knew he was an MD. His degree's on the wall. The hour and 20 minutes you were waiting in that little room with your little thing on, freezing to death, you read everything on the wall. You already read his medical certificate. You knew he was a doctor, so you knew it wasn't true. So it was belittling, and it wasn't true. Now, I asked you another question. I didn't really ask it. I did. I said, you wanted Marcus Welby, MD, to come in. Amy, do you know who Marcus Welby, MD, is?
I am familiar with the name. I am, and he would somebody your age, I think. Yeah.
So if I did that, we were doing a presentation and I went right to, I found the youngest person I could find and I'm going to ask her, put her on the spot. Now, was that ageism? Even though I was laughing and it was fun. See where it gets gray? I'm not real sure about that one. I don't want to embarrass her. But for goodness sakes, you weren't alive when Marcus Welby was on TV. So it's truthful. See how gray it kind of gets? Yeah. So language matters with ageism. Like this statement, a word is worth 1,000 pictures, and a picture is worth 1,000 words. Can you see her? What words would you use to describe this woman? Old lady, old, elderly, handicapped. What? Down the hill. Okay, so you were back here. You might not be able to see it, but there's a whole bunch of younger people back there. You came home from the race? Well, how was the race? Oh, it was great. There was this crazy old lady out there with her walker that was in the race. What pictures would come to mind if someone said that? Or what if they would have come back and said, wow, there was a woman in the race today. She's going to be my role model. Look at how she's dressed. She wants everyone to see her. She's got her number proudly displayed. She has her gym shoes on. She's not letting anything hold her back, not even her walker. She's still fully living her life despite some physical frailties. In ageism, we can put a lens on of what we're choosing to see. And we need to personally switch that lens to see as much of the good and what a person can do and what their strengths are and what value they bring to the world right then and there. She was an inspiration, I'm sure, to many people. And this is where we have to start. We have to start first with our perception of others and our self-talk. And this is more important than you might realize for all of us as we get older. If we carry that negative impression and that negative labeling, it plays into our gerontophobia, our fear of aging. Because, you know what? I bet she never dreamed she would have to use a walker. I bet that was never in her plan. But she's using it, and she entered a race. So this is where we really have to understand where that ageism is coming at the depths of our being and how ingrained it is in our society. Briefly, a few language mistakes. For one thing, for me, there is no such thing as the elderly. So elderly is an adjective. It means rather old. I wish we would get back to honoring people and using words like elders again, and having that represent the intelligence and the experience and the historical perspective that someone that has been opening their eyes for 95 years, that many of us will never ever get that gift. Many of us will never know what it's like to open our eyes at 95, 97, 100. So how do we tap back into elders, the elders, the concept of they or them? New research out, a lot of research out now about how different we are as we age. We're very alike at age 5. We're very alike. Every year we get older and we learn different things. We travel to new places. We have different experiences. Our differences as individuals, we get farther and farther away from likeness to one another. So we have to be very careful when we take people who are older and we put them in a category of a they or them, and try to believe that people are all alike at a certain age. That is not the case. The one, though, that hurts me the most when I would work with the senior living industry would be when I would hear the dutiful daughter say, "I'm the parent now." Your parents are your parents. They will always be your parents. They might need some additional love and caring and support, but they'll always be your parents. So that one just really gets to my heart when I'm sure everyone would always want to be their child's parent. In terms of ageist phrases, wow, these are being collected all over. I just took a snapshot of what's considered some of the worst ageist phrases when they hold focus groups with older people, as what are words and phrases they've heard that seem to be the most damaging. And then the one about the cute and the sweetie. If the woman that says, "Well, I call everyone I know sweetie," but be careful. If you don't know the person, then think twice about being called sweetie. I'm now sweetie at Albertsons. I wasn't for years, but now all of a sudden I've become sweetie. So then what did I tell you is the test? What's one of the best tests for ageism? Is it true? Well, I hope so, because I try to be very sweet when I'm in the checkout. So I'll take that as a compliment and not let it bother me anymore. Where at first I was like, well, she didn't call that woman sweetie. Why is she calling me sweetie and asking me if I need help with my groceries to the car? Now here's in senior living, when they would ask people why they don't want to move to senior living, this one on the bottom, this was the #1 answer. I don't want to be around all those old people. #1 answer. And now that you know, what does that mean? That's gerontophobia. But the one I didn't know about was the Gomer. Had anyone heard of that? Yes, it's a standard in emergency rooms. It's get out of my emergency room. Horrible. And then, like the senior moment, think more about saying, "Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue," because you've probably been saying "tip of my tongue" all your life, when you can't remember something. One thing I've kind of learned, that if I can't remember something, I either go into another room and all of a sudden it comes to me, or there must be a brain connection on my bottom, because as soon as I go to sit down, oh, I remember now. So there's some kind of cognitive trigger, I think, on my bottom. So in terms of age discrimination, we see it represented in a lot of different venues. One, most notorious, would be elder abuse. And then in our healthcare system, we continue to have a lot of health misinformation because we don't have that many geriatricians. So, we need more geriatricians in the field because there's a complete lack of knowledge of a whole set of health issues and complications with taking too many medicines together and what's happening when you have different illnesses converging at the same time. Our nursing homes, we see age discrimination in terms of our pay structure, and that would be with our home health. So we have the most vulnerable people who probably need some of the smartest, most loving, caring people caring for them, and they're lucky if they make minimum wage. So I see that as a huge area of discrimination. We have so many negative portrayals in the media. The whole concept of anti-aging, you all just answered that question. First question, we all woke up today and we were awake yesterday. We're going to be awake today. It means we're all aging. It's impossible to not age. It's what you want to happen. You want to get older unless there's some magic number that you're hoping you're just going to cash it in on that magic number. When I was recruited to work in Kansas City for a while, and you might not know, Kansas City is the international home of Hallmark cards. And I was in one of their Crown Hallmark stores, one of their real special stores where they would try out different greeting card lines. And I was looking through all the greeting cards and I came across this card with this bunny on the front. And the card said, "I smell old people." I worked for this large senior living organization at that time, and we had a lot of previous executives from Hallmark. Well, I just created quite a disturbance. Unfortunately, when I found the card, the poor little girl at the checkout counter, because there I was, "What are you doing with this guy?" Poor thing, she had no control over it. But I recruited all of my ex-Hallmark card executives to go down and do a huge campaign with Hallmark to get them to realize that's mean. That's mean. So when I asked Amy about Marcus Welby, that was just kind of funny. That was just fun banter. It's the other real test of ageism. Is it mean? Is it demeaning? And who in the world would send someone a greeting card like that? So we need to stand up. If you see greeting cards, we need to say something that are just mean and ageist. Another concept of ageism is that it can be unintentional, where with other cohorts, with other populations, we would have thought it all through. But with older adults, sometimes we don't think through everything. We're trying to do good, but we have unintentional ageism. Here are my two of my biggest examples of this would be the 2002 Salt Lake Olympics. So they had several venues that were up in the mountains to do several of the Olympic events, obviously. Skiing and just all sorts of things up in the mountains. They realized that they were going to have to close several of the roads up to the mountains to put the events on. And to get through the checkpoint, you would either have to have a ticket to show you were had a ticket for the Olympics, or you were one of the businesses or vendors or companies that had a pass. So they had assembled all the organizations, all the businesses, companies, everybody that would have been along those roads going up to the mountains, so that they could talk about getting the drivers the necessary passes and how they would get the different resident groups their passes. Just so happened that someone in one of those companies, his mother was a Meals on Wheels driver. And he said, well, my mom is Meals on Wheels. She serves several people who live up there. How are all the Meals on Wheels drivers going to get through? They had not even thought about the older residents that did not have transportation. Luckily, someone was there to represent them and get that taken care of. That one was not a disaster, but Hurricane Katrina was a disaster. I don't know if any of you heard the story of St. Rita's nursing home. Anybody hear that story? I'll try to get through it. St. Rita's had 90 plus residents. They lived one street above the evacuation route for the hurricane. They did not have an evacuation plan for their bedridden residents. 1 week later, after Hurricane Katrina, when people were finally able to get in, they found over 1/3 of the residents had drowned. We have nursing home state surveys who check to make sure that the ice scoop is in the holder, or they'll be fined, that they're dispensing their medicine in a correct manner. But no one had thought to ask these nursing homes, did they have an evacuation plan for their most vulnerable residents? We thought we had it fixed. We thought there was so much hullabaloo about it until Hurricane Sandy hit. So out of 26 nursing homes in the path of Sandy, only 4 had evacuation plans. So if we think, and to me that is blatant ageism, if that would have been anything else, think of it, anything else, there would have been an evacuation plan. So it's our responsibility. This is the one thing all of us will do together. Not all of us will have diabetes. Not all of us will wear dentures. Not all of us will have osteoporosis. But the one thing we all have in common is that we're aging. It's the one thing. And why is it that we do not put the level of importance and caring on this one thing that we all share, and can only hope that we will be one of the lucky ones to get into our 80s and beyond. Other consequences, this one is very unique. This is what happened to the city of St. Petersburg. So after World War II, St. Petersburg, the whole East Coast I'm making a gross overstatement there, all decided they wanted to be snowbirds. Do you all know what snowbirds are in California? Okay. So they found St. Petersburg became like a mecca for retirement. And so people would, from Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, they'd go down and vacation in St. Petersburg in the winter. Why did they go to St. Petersburg? They had this beautiful main street with stores, barbershops, restaurants, markets, and the streets were lined with these lovely trees. But the interesting thing, that was different about St. Petersburg were the green benches. You know how many streets they have park benches on the streets, but the benches face the street, right? St. Petersburg, the benches faced each other, and they had pairs of benches all the way down the main street of St. Petersburg. The snowbirds would get up in the morning, they'd ride the bus or they'd walk to downtown, they'd do their shopping, they'd go to the grocery store, then they'd rest and sit on the benches and visit with one another. This had gone on for the time after the World War II until 1961. St. Petersburg was flourishing. Every storefront filled. A meatpacking company wanted to come into St. Petersburg. They sent their scouts out. Scouts came back, met with the JCs. They said to the JCs, we don't want to see all those old people on Main Street. It's not going to be good for our business. So in 1961, one by one, the Chamber of Commerce and the JCs removed all the green benches. And if you remember, well, you might not. I'm from the East Coast. St. Petersburg went into, it took decades. One by one, the businesses closed storefronts. People found other places to retire in Florida from St. Petersburg. It was no longer the Mecca. It took them decades to rebound from that. That was a consequence of their ageism. And they allowed that to happen, and they had no mechanism to stop it from happening. So to age well, what do we need to do? I'm going to get my trusty beach ball as the illustration for that. So to age well, so this is now what we're going to do about it. We have to become resilient. Now, what does what does resilience mean? The ability to bounce back. Exactly. Stuff will happen to us. Bad things will happen to us. Things we don't want to happen will happen. That's just a fact of life. If we are filled, if I think of, if I actually was going to bring this not blown up, and I was going to actually believe I was going to blow this beach ball up in front of you. 10 minutes later, I decided, boy, that was not a good idea. But if you think of your life, this is the illustration, this is your life. And you've got many dimensions of your life. You've got a physical being, a social being, a vocational aspect, spiritual aspect, and an emotional aspect, and an intellectual aspect. Multiple dimensions of your life. And what we're trying to do each day as we get older is to keep our life as full as we can keep it. We're filling it with self-esteem, with self-confidence, with focusing on what we can do and our strengths. We're blowing up that ball so that when things happen, I can bounce back. Now here's what ends up happening when we internalize ageism. So somebody calls me sweetie at the grocery store, and I'm taking it personally. Now look, I can't even, come on, you can do it, come on. Anyway, you keep having these barbs, you keep having things happen, you might get sick. You're like me, where I find out I have osteoporosis, and my doctor says to me, now Jan, you are older, so you be careful, don't fall. You should have seen the way I walked out of that doctor's office. I was diminished. It was demeaning. And so then when I get hit with things, I don't bounce back. So we have to be purposeful and intentional in keeping our lives filled with self-confidence. We need to have the dimensions of our lives flourishing, because the ageism, as you see now, is everywhere, and we need to constantly deflect its negative influence. So research on internalized ageism, bad health outcomes. We found that it lowers your life expectancy, increases your blood pressure, reduces self-esteem, reduces your risk-taking and your motivation. So we have to be diligent. We have to be brave. We can't be sissies. It's our only life, and we have to find ways to combat ageism. There are many myths out there that bombard you. One is that as we get older, everyone is depressed. That is just a total myth. It is not a normal part of aging. You might need assistance or medication, and we have that available, but it's not a normal part of aging. Another myth is cognitive decline in terms of brain disease. Brain disease, that's another myth. Only 20 to 25% of the population over 80 will have brain disease. Of course, we're going to forget things. We're going to have things on the tip of our tongue. Try not to say senior moment. We've got a lot up here. We're like those file cabinets that, you can barely get the drawer closed. We got so much in there. We got to sift through a lot of stuff sometimes to find the answer. Your physical well-being, another myth that everyone will decline. Well, think of that, the chart I showed you at the very beginning of how that's just the inevitable. We will end up in the wheelchair, the cane, and then we will die. That is not a normal part of aging. 80% of older Americans are healthy enough to engage in normal activities. 64% of adults 65 plus report no limitations. Only 20% report that they need assistance with activities of daily living. But it's up to us to maintain our physical well-being and our physical wellness. No one can walk for us. No one can exercise for us. We have to do it ourselves. This is the one that is this attachment theory. I put this at the very end because it's part of the new research that I'm having trouble getting the idea across to people as to how important it is for us at any age to stop the ageist internal language that we're using and the thinking. The concept is, if you remember when I talked about my class at Miami and that I realized I was no longer in the in-group. Now with aging, we all luckily just keep aging. So let's say with ageism, we are perpetuating a discriminatory pattern in which the perpetrator, the in-group, which I thought I was in, right? I thought I was in the in-group. I transition then to the out-group. Okay, now try to stay with me. So if I'm at that race with the woman with the walker, and I look at her and I think, wow, old lady, terrible, I'm thinking terrible things. And I'm in the race. I'm in the in group. I'm one of the racers in the in group. And I look at her. Decades, years will go by. All of a sudden, I am in the out group. But I've been carrying this ageist belief with me because I get black balloons on my birthday, and I keep thinking that way. If I keep thinking that way, then what happens to me when I'm her age? How can I feel good about myself? How can I? It will be impossible for you to age well if you don't find a way to shed off those negative feelings and thoughts about aging. We all need a role model. My role model is 87-year-old Kay Wagner, who lives in Cincinnati. I've watched her go through her 5th decade, her 6th decade, and her 7th decade, and now her 8th decade. She joined my fitness centers when she was in her late 40s. And I always had, I want to be Kay. I want to be Kay. Find the role model for you. Find the person. Put it out there. What is your vision for who you want to be when you're 90 or 100? Because you won't like to be the picture of the person you're painting in your head, the negative person, right? You won't want to be that person. So we have to begin thinking of ageism and how we're attaching those negative thoughts and beliefs now. How do we shed those? How do we see a different lens? How do we take a different impression from my own personal aging so that when I get to certain age markers, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Just like, you know, when I got my AARP card, there would have been a time I probably would have not liked that, but I had to flip it around. You get a lot of great discounts. Flip things, find a way to flip it around to see the good. Because what's the alternative is that we're not here, that it's death. So be brave, don't be a sissy. You need to identify now, I'm asking you, identify your personal attitudes, identify language that you might be using that you haven't even really thought about it, either to others or to yourself. What kind of expectations might you have? Right? My doctor's saying to me, well, you know, Jan, now you're older, don't fall. She now had some expectation that I was just now going to go walk out of her office and fall on my face. What expectation? Gather information. That's my favorite question. Is it truthful? So is it truthful? Or is what the person is saying demeaning, belittling? Being polite's never ageist. Laughing at ageist humor. We always want to address questions, and I'd see this in senior living all the time. It would be a mom and a daughter, and they would never even look at the mom. They asked all the questions to the daughter, just as if the woman wasn't there. Or you'll be in a hospital, nurse will be there, person's in the bed, and it's all about, well, the machine says that you're fine. Well, she's not fine. So address the person and be present with the person that you're directly talking to. Oh, and this one, don't assume everyone that's older has a hearing loss and needs you to talk loudly and slowly. So we don't want to be sissies. We want to speak up. We want to be brave. I've got a, Darren, could you take this one down and bring the next one up? I do a lot of work for the Center for Successful Aging at Cal State Fullerton. I've been working with them for 20 years to bring wellness and to dispel ageism to that university center. And last year, we asked the members of the Center for Successful Aging to collect photographs over the summer of what they were doing to combat ageism themselves and what they were doing to enhance their personal wellness. So for their conference last year, I put this slideshow together, but what I really want you to listen to is the song that's playing in the background and the message of that song. So whenever you're ready, Darren, and pull the lights down if you could. Okay. Yeah, and then just pull it. What I do is I just pull it down to the, there we go. But put it on the big.
What would I do?
Yeah, I do it that way.
If I believed, would the wind always fill up my sail? How far would I go? What could I achieve? Trusting the hero in me. If I were brave, I'd walk the razor's edge, where fools and dreamers dare to tread, and never lose faith, even when losing my way.
Should safe now. Okay, 11:15. So any questions? Thank you for being such a wonderful audience, and I appreciate it. And you stayed awake. I did not see one person embarrass themselves because, you know, I would have walked up and I would have embarrassed them if they would have fallen asleep. Any questions? Any discussion anyone would like to have?
Around the world, we look at ageism and others. I mean, are different. Oh.
Exactly. Yes. I'm actually on the board of advisors for the South African Care Forum. So I go to South Africa quite a bit. I've been working with them for years on how we create well environments for for those aged in South Africa, and it's critical because they're missing an entire generation because of AIDS. So we have literally every person possible is helping to care for younger children. And we're even doing things there where it's combined senior living, where the children, instead of living in an orphanage, are living right in the senior living organization, and they're all living and learning and taking care of each other. What's so amazing, though, like for South Africa, my personal experience is with the white Afrikaners, we have a lot of ageism. But with our tribal, so we do a lot of work with the Zulus and with our tribal nursing homes that are very segregated. We see unbelievable respect of the elders. It's a totally different dynamic when you walk in and you watch the interaction of the children with the elders. So it is very much a cultural issue. And as we have more people moving and living different parts of the world and bringing their culture in, it's truly exacerbating this issue of ageism. It's going to be crippling for our society if we don't figure out how to get a handle on it. So thanks for asking that question. But largely, we're not seeing even elder respect as much as we thought. In some of the Asian countries where we would see that so much, now they're leaving. They don't live there anymore. A few years ago, when I was in graduate school, I was involved in a project to do one of the very first senior living communities in Japan. And so that was in the mid-90s. They never had to have senior living communities because the children always took care, made homes, or that filia responsibility. And now it's booming. China, same thing. Part of a group called the Evergreen Society, and we have been working for years creating senior living models for China, because they did the one child rule, and that's a status symbol for the Chinese children to be leaving and going off. So it's a crisis going on right now that we've got to figure out if we're all going to live. If you want to live tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, we have to get a handle on it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Amy?
So, what is the right term for you? Older than yourself. I myself like an elder, like that, but I don't like elderly.
Right.
And more mature. That doesn't sound right. So, do I say a woman who is older? Older woman.
And so the question always is the adjective needed?
That's a good one.
Okay.
Okay, that's what I'll take home to everybody.
Because if you were talking about does the age have really anything to do with it? No.
So instead, the lady with the gray hair.
Or the, yeah.
Or the
Yes,
shirt.
start
Okay.
thinking about it that way. Does it have meaning? Does it add the necessary information to the conversation? But at this,
Maybe if you can't see the person and it's part of the story,
mm-hmm.
then
Yeah. You just have to be very careful. I remember this story. I was living back in Cincinnati, and they had this woman that had been pulled from her car by some man in a furniture store parking lot. And he drug her into the store and was holding her hostage. And the news started saying, well, he drags this elderly woman out of the car and drags her into the furniture store. And then, so we've got updated information. 62-year-old Betty, and and he had called her, what did I say? Elderly woman. Now, in reality, that's right. Because what did I say the definition of elderly is? I said it was the true definition. Webster's definition is rather old. But that's it. But so picture is worth 1,000 words, words worth 1,000 pictures. So if I say elderly, what do you picture? Probably with trouble with activities of daily living, right? Would have some functional loss. But it technically means the definition is rather old. Yes. Oh, right. Rather old, right? Exactly. Yeah. But that's why you've got to really ask your question, is the adjective necessary, or are you looking at the negative of the individual in your descriptor, or are you looking at the positive aspect of the individual in the descriptor?
I really don't care what they call it.
Good. Then you're my beach ball. You've got high resilience.
Because I think it's all
Mm-hmm.
nobody in here probably knows. But it's what I achieved my lifetime, how I feel.
Yes.
I've had people tell me, thank you. I do. It's how you feel about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And if any of you here in San Clemente, about a month ago, you had about an old guy,
Yeah. Okay.
I'm a World War II veteran, and I'm 91 years old. I don't need
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
We do for the screen, sir. People hear this.
It won't be long, and we'll be gone. Is anyone here part of the greatest generation besides me? Stand up, please. Stand up. World War II veteran. Bless your heart.
Yeah.
Sorry? Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Am I the only World War II veteran here? That's why I don't have a problem. We grew up differently. We really did. And I had been flown back and honored in Washington, D.C. before. But this time, briefly, if you read the article, I was flown back and I was honored for 3 days. The first time they had the National Memorial Concert, which is on the lawn just next to the United States Capitol. They have that every year. And I was honored in the front, and I was on television. They interviewed me. And the next day, I was interviewed and at the National World War II Memorial. And if you've never seen it, please do. It is gorgeous and very, very moving. And I was honored, and I presented a wreath in front of the memorial for the veterans, servicemen who gave their life during World War II, the Wall of Freedom. I presented the wreath. Then the next day, I was honored, and I was in the Memorial Day National Parade that was televised, and I was an honorary Grand Marshal.
Wow. Good for you. Yeah.
And that was just last month. And when I say, and I'll quit because I have had a fun life. And I've lived all my life. If it's going to be, it's up to me. And that's what I've done.
See, there's our role model, right? Yeah.
Well, give you an idea. How many people have a pilot's license in here? Thank you. Would you solo in? 150, 172, 150? I flew those. I couldn't afford to fly those. I flew a Piper J3 Cub. But I went on, and just gentlemen understand, currently today, I still hold 6 national and world records in aviation.
Wow. Okay.
And I've had a fun life, and I won't go on because I could spend a lot of time doing this. So,
Thank you for your.
don't care what they call you. Just live your life. Forget your
Yeah.
age.
Yeah. Resilience. Thank you all for being here. Thank you very much. Coffee in the back. Our tables. Get some information about San Clemente Village if you don't know. We're a great organization. We're here to do good things. Thank you. Thank you.
Very